Hey everybody, it's Charles from HumbleMechanic.com, and today I'm going to give you some tips on upgrading to a performance exhaust. Upgrading to a performance exhaust is one of the most common and usually one of the first modifications that we do to our cars. Today I want to give you guys some tips and advice on upgrading your exhaust. First, remember that installing an aftermarket exhaust is a compromise. Sure, we might see an increase in horsepower, in torque, and throttle response, but that can come with some negative gains. We're also going to be increasing the sound output of our car. For a lot of us, this is not a big deal. In fact, it's one of the main reasons we upgrade our exhaust, but this can create some unpleasant sounds. I've been in plenty of cars that the drone of the exhaust was almost unbearable while driving on the highway. When we upgrade our exhaust and remove things like resonators or mufflers or catalytic converters, we're going to increase the sound output and increase the resonance and possibly end up with a drone that we may not want. Luckily today, we can find plenty of audio clips out there to get an idea of what it's going to sound like when we upgrade our exhaust. You may also not see these performance gains right away after installing the exhaust. Your ECM may take some time to learn these new parameters. This may be easily overcome by deleting learned values or simply getting the car tuned. Number 2 is buy good quality stuff. This is basically standard for upgrading anything on our cars, but we do want to make sure that we're buying good quality exhausts. Now, if you're changing out the exhaust because it's all worn out and rusted on a 95 Corolla, well, it may not be that big of a deal, but we're spending a lot of money on an exhaust to increase the performance of our vehicle. We want to buy the right stuff. Make sure that you're buying an exhaust with mandrel bent pipes. This is where the die is put inside the pipe and then the pipe is bent to prevent crushing of the inner portion of the bend. If the inner portion of the bend is all crushed and looks like an accordion, that can disrupt airflow, decrease flow, cause hot spots, ultimately cause breakdown of the pipe faster, and it looks terrible on top of it. If you're worried about corrosion, look into buying a stainless steel exhaust. This will absolutely add to the cost of the system, but if you live somewhere where rust is a really big issue, it may be worth the extra money. Make sure the exhaust that you buy has good quality clamps, good quality hardware, and usually the best exhaust systems out on the market have been engineered and designed really well and require little to no modification. Number 3, there's some recommended parts you're going to want to replace. This is also kind of standard with most jobs that we do. Number 1 is hardware. If you're replacing an old exhaust that's all rusted, you're probably going to cut those bolts off anyway, so you're going to need to replace that hardware. If there's any galling or any damage to the bolts, go ahead and replace them. Now, if you're replacing an exhaust on a car with 1,000 miles, this is probably not a big deal. Go ahead and reuse the hardware. The car we're working on here had about 140,000 miles on it, so it's getting all new hardware. We also want to make sure that we're replacing the gaskets. Gaskets typically are one-time use only, and while you might be able to reuse them, there's no sense in running a risk of creating a leak because you didn't replace $1 worth of gasket on a brand new exhaust system. And hey, go ahead and throw a little copper anti-seize on your hardware to make it easier for disassembly next time. And finally, most exhaust systems are held on by what's called exhaust hangers. These are rubber or polyurethane hangers that hold and support the exhaust. They also allow the exhaust to move around with torque of engine, twist of the body, simply just the flow of air coming through it. If these weren't there, you would run the risk of cracking a pipe because it would be too rigid. When you upgrade to a performance exhaust, this is a great time to go ahead and replace these hangers. Again, if this is a brand new car you're doing, it's probably not nearly as important as doing it on an older car. This is one step that I did not take when I upgraded my performance exhaust. So now I'm going to have to go back at a different time and replace those hangers. Not replacing those hangers may mean your exhaust has more movement than you really want. This can result in hitting heat shields, causing rattling, causing noise that you do not want to have. Number 4, when you're taking everything apart, consider what it's going to take to put it back to stock. Now you might think, why would I want to ever put this back to stock? Well, you never know what's going to happen in the future. You may want to sell it, and the new owner may want the original exhaust. Heck, you might even be able to sell that original exhaust to recoup a little bit of the expense of the performance one you just purchased. These performance exhausts are expensive, so any way you can recoup a couple bucks is worth the effort to me. And heck, you may hate the way it sounds, so save everything and make sure that you can put it back together the way you found it. So if you have to end up cutting a pipe like I did here, cut it in an area where you can put a new clamp on it and seal the exhaust back up, or it's really easy to weld back together. I've seen these cut out and removed really poorly, which means the customer ended up having to do more work to get it back together, or it costs them more money instead of just a few bucks for a new clamp. Number 5, install, adjust, then adjust, then adjust, and then adjust again. I found that the best way to actually install the exhaust is to put everything in the car as loose as you can put it, but still have everything supported. This allows all the pipes to move freely. Then I start at the front and work my way back, snugging clamps and snugging fasteners up as I go. This will allow you to move and shift and twist the pipes in a way that you can prevent rattling, prevent hitting heat shields, or any other components. And then when you get to the tailpipe, make sure that you center and straighten the tailpipe. I can't tell you how many exhaust systems that I've seen that have dual outlets and they're crooked or they're offset or off-centered or something like that. Spend the time, spend the effort to make sure that it looks good coming out of the back of the car or wherever your exhaust exits. You spent a lot of money, a lot of time and effort replacing this exhaust. Let's make sure it looks nice as well as sounds nice. And 6, a few small warnings. Your exhaust probably will smell pretty bad for the first 100 or so miles. There's going to be a lot of oil, a lot of grease on this exhaust that you just installed, perhaps leftover penetrating oil from when you remove the other exhaust, and it's going to take some time for that to burn off, and typically those do smell pretty bad. Also, new catalytic converters have what's almost a break-in period that they smell pretty bad too. So after you're done installing your exhaust and you've checked for any leaks, you've rechecked your hardware, take it on a really long, good test drive and get it good and hot and burn all that stuff off. The good thing is once it's gone, it doesn't ever come back. Also, about 2 weeks after you install your exhaust and it's had plenty of heat cycles, go ahead and recheck all your bolts and make sure that they're still tight. And finally, remember that typically when you're upgrading to a performance exhaust, most of these systems are not tested for on-road use. They are what are considered off-road use only, so technically it shouldn't be installed on a car that's driven on a public street. This becomes really important if you have a state inspection you have to pass, where they're going to inspect your exhaust system as part of the inspection. And then there's a handful of states in the US that are really strict about things, and you may get in big trouble for removing a catalytic converter or a factory exhaust system. While I'm all for you doing it, I just want to make sure that you realize you might actually be breaking the law. All right, guys, with that, I'm going to wrap it up there. Questions, comments, or other tips you have about performance exhaust, you know what to do. Hey, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Always appreciate that. If you want exclusive content, discounts you can't get anywhere else to places like Black Forest Industries, 42 Draft Design, MT Knives, Sonic Tools, Eastwood, and more, check out the crew membership program. If that's not your thing, I set up a Patreon where you can throw a buck or two over there, or simply use my Amazon affiliate link. I'll have links to some tools that I used in this video down in the description. You can also subscribe right here on YouTube or over on the blog at HumbleMechanic.com. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course on Snapchat. All right, guys, hey, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.